Hi guys, Mr. Overon here with Mr. Overon's Tarot Reading Services. Today's video is going to be kind of a long video, and it's one that I think is well overdue and that no one on the internet seems to talk about. Within the community, we have covens. Groups of witches are groups of people who come together and work with one another in a singular cause. For fellowship or to perform spells, rituals, whatever. But it is something that, happens within the witchcraft community, wicca, whatever you want to call it. Many times, though, people abuse their places of power. So, like, you will have a high priest or high priestess or high priest and priestess who will band together and try to run the coven like a Gestapo and get very deep into that cult mentality of what I say goes, basically. And where that is okay sometimes, you have to know the difference between chain of command and abuse. And so I have a lot of notes for today's video, and I'm going to be reading off of them and giving my own interpretation and just explaining it a little bit further. So without further damn ado, here we go. The very first thing is, do the leaders, priest, priestess, whatever, or significant members of the coven isolate you from people that you care about inside the coven or outside of the coven? Is there an attempt to isolate you from family and from friends that you had prior to entering the coven? Is there significant factionalism within inside the coven? Subgroups that others in the coven point to or suggest or demand that you associate with? One or two persons in the coven that everyone else dislikes but nothing is done about it? Is there an approved list or a disapproved list of people into it, or institutions and ideals that you should or should not associate with? Or so, a coven is a group of people who come together for fellowship and are there for one another. It's kind of like a church, but even churches do this, where they say, oh, you can't associate with this person or that person because of this reason. You can't do this, this, or this because of this reason or that reason. So it's not just within the witch community that this happens. It happens all over the place. And it can even be happening in relationship too. You have that one spouse that says, oh no, you can't hang out with them, or you can't talk with them, whatever. That is a form of abuse. Now, if it's coming from a political person or a clergy member or something like that, that's also a form of abuse. No one has the right to tell you who you can or cannot associate with, especially if it's a friend or family member. Now, we all tell each other, like our friends or whatever, you really shouldn't talk to that person. They're just toxic or whatever, whatever. That is helpful criticism and advice when we do it in a loving manner. But when we come from a stance of power and assert that dominancy over somebody and say, no, you may not do X, Y, Z because you're a member of this group or organization or whatever else. You gotta kind of take that with a grain of salt. So, you really want to make sure that you are protecting yourself and your interests. It's better to be a solitary practitioner than to be in a coven that is abusive and overbearing and overpowering. I myself have ran covens in the past where it was a democracy, but it was still that I'm the high priest. You have to listen to how I present these teachings, but you're able to build from that, you know, and with respect comes respect. So if you respect your members, they're going to respect you. The other thing is, do the leaders of the coven levy coven taxes, dues, membership fees in excess of what might be reasonable for photocopying, refreshments served at meetings, and separate any monies collected upon agreement of the entire coven? Do they monitor your finances in any way or demand payments in any form for their services or protection? Do leaders behave honorably with regards to their own money and possessions, other people's money and possessions? Do the leaders of the coven repetitive difficulties handling their daily affairs? Are they constantly in crisis, on the edge, depressed, ill, in debt, having family or legal issues, being evicted, so on and so forth? Some of this can be chalked up with reasonable learning experiences in a spiritual leader's life journey, but beware of this syndrome if the following occurs. Are you and others frequently being asked to help clean up this person's life, consistently being asked to babysit their children while they firefight, emergency calls to help run them to the shop or to errands not connected with coven activities, loan them money? Members seem obsessed with cursing or hexing others. Do they blame everything wrong about their lives on another, particularly on spells or hexes that they feel they might be under themselves? Are they constantly accusing others of attack, personal or magical? Are they reliably melodramatic about the supposed threats they are under? Okay, so we all go to each other for help from time to time, but it is not your personal responsibility to constantly help members of your coven. Doing the whole thoughts and prayers thing, of course, that costs nothing, but when they're constantly asking you to come out of pocket for stuff, being reasonable with charges, like, hey guys, we're going to be having this full moon ritual gathering. We need people to help volunteer. We need people to pick up paper plates and do like a potluck dish and this, that, and the other thing. That's reasonable. But saying, hey, your monthly dues are up, so you need to pay $100, and because you didn't have a full $100 last time your dues were up, we're going to need to actually have you pay $200. Stuff like that. That's not okay. Unless the group is renting a building or something like that, there should never be any kind of costs associated with being in a coven outside of, like, we're going to get together and have a barbecue or whatever. Can you pitch in $10 for this, that, or the other thing? Stuff like that. Use your better judgment, but if you are being told you need to foot 100% of the bill or 85% of the bill because you're low man on the totem pole or whatever else, that is not okay. Personally, myself, in all my years of working with witchcraft and working within the witchcraft community and doing spiritual blessings and tarot readings and stuff like that, if I charge a very reasonable amount. Like my spellcasting services, depending on what the person needs or wants, depends on what I charge them. Because I'm thinking to myself, okay, I need this ingredient, I need this ingredient, I need this ingredient, and so on and so forth. And so I will apply what I've charged them to procuring those ingredients or those things that I need to do that spell with. I know people who charge upwards of $160 for a tarot reading. That's ridiculous. No, absolutely not. There's no reason why you should charge more than $10 or $15. $20 max, you know, because that's what I charge. I charge $20. And if I have to travel to the person, I add a little bit of a travel cost to it. So my baseline price is $20. But if I take them over the, like if I do a call or something like that, there's times where I've done a base price package, say like $20 for a 30-minute reading, which, you know, if you've been around and looking for readings, that's actually really cheap. I never charge more than $20 for a reading. Now, when I do parties and I read for large groups of people, then I'll charge. The most I've ever charged to do a group of people was $130. And that was 16 people, and the host got a free reading. And so, you know, that's 16 people at, you know, I knocked it way down. So you just got to kind of feel that one out and see how things work out for you the best. But if they're charging you for like tier membership, well, if you're a platinum member, you get all this stuff. But if you're just a bronze member, then you'll... No, absolutely not. That's not how covens work. That's not how witchcraft works. Witchcraft doesn't think... It doesn't work that way. There's no tiers like, oh, well, you're only a first degree initiate, so you don't have access to all these other wonderful prizes. But if you give us $500, then we'll do this for you. Absolutely not. No, that's not how that works. Run far, run fast, run furious away from that group. Acceptable charges are just that. They're acceptable. Hey, we have rent coming due on our coven stead. We need us, all of us need to come together to help pay for this, or we need to relocate and find something that's doable on what we are able to contribute. Or, you know, we're doing a picnic, can you do XYZ, like I said in the past. So I'm not going to harp on that much more. And it's not your responsibility to constantly get people out of the fire. The next thing is, do leaders within the organization make a habit of embarrassing or invalidating you or others in front of people? If you said yes to the above, notice with whom and where this happens. In front of other coveners only, in front of those outside or not connected with the coven, in secret, just you, not in front of anyone else. Have you or anyone else become coven scapegoat? A person that is habitually held up to scorn and criticism. Does that person, in your estimation, deserve the scorn heaped upon them? Are they impassable with their words, or do their words and actions often seem dissonant? Does gossip about yourself or others come back to you allegedly from the coven leadership? Alternatively, do coven leaders constantly tell you you have faults because they allegedly hear them about you from others? Do they use this information against you in any way? Do they use other people's alleged information against you as a substitute for taking a stand themselves, or instead of responsibly making you aware of your own perceptions, do they blame your side of the story? Do they blame you for things being based on opinion? Others cite you without bothering to hear your side of the story, so on and so forth. So if you're constantly being ridiculed, put down, everything is your fault, you somehow become the center of the freaking universe for the coven, and nothing that you do is right, you're constantly being belittled, berated, badgered, whatever, all those B words, then you really need to take a look at that and not allow somebody else's shortcomings to become your identity. That's bullying, plain and simple. Now, within organizations, within office, with whatever, there's always going to be that office talk, office gossip, what have you. When you are in a close-knit community, such as a coven, that should not take place. And if it takes place, it should be done tongue-in-cheek. Like, oh, Brenda, you're so silly, or that's such a stupid thing to do, blah, blah, blah. You know, joke around with the person, but don't make them your scapegoat. Don't put them at the center of the universe for why bad things are happening or whatever else. Allowing people to do that constantly gives way to familiarity and allows that person to continuously blame you for them stubbing their toe, basically. So do not allow a coven or any leader that you follow, a teacher, whatever else, to make you feel less than. If you are feeling that way, get the hell out of that coven, that organization, break ties with that person. It goes without saying, though, have a little bit of a thick skin, roll with the punches, but learn when the punches are thrown in aggressive manners, not when they're just like joshing around with you. It's when they cross that line of, okay, this is no longer funny, this is now becoming an attack on my person. That's when you need to step up and say, okay, no more. And if they continue on after that, then that's when you're like, okay, you are just an asshole, I need to separate myself from you. And if that means leaving the coven, that means leaving the coven. I was part of an organization, our coven, whatever you want to call it, and I just felt like I had outgrown them, and I was ready to move on. And when I went to do so, they all banded together and said, absolutely not, you may not leave, you don't have our permission. I said, whoa, wait a minute, I don't need your permission to leave. I feel that I am no longer getting what I need from this coven. We have strayed from our original goals, and it's time that I branch out on my own and go do my own thing. it was unanimously decided that I was going to then be bound, and that they were going to hex me. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's what you feel you need to do, go right on ahead. And this is back when I was first getting into Wicca and stuff like that, and if you followed this channel for any length of time, you know that I have always worked with dark magic and light magic and so on and so forth, and so I was really hot and heavy into devil worship and black magic at one time, and then I learned about Wicca and I started getting into the lighter side of stuff, and so I was just like, okay, you know what, if this is what you feel you need to do, then you do it, but it's not going to change the fact that I'm leaving. So, you know, here's my 2 weeks notice or whatever, I'll see you guys later. Having a coven that you once trusted as brothers and sisters work magic against you is a really shitty thing, because these people know intimate details of your life. They know your strife, your struggle, your ups, your downs, your hopes, your dreams, everything else in between. They took it upon themselves to try and bind me, and they also began working magics against me to make me lose my job, to become financially destitute, to have my relationship fall apart, to ostracize me from my friends and family, and to basically just separate me from everyone who I cared about, knew, and loved. And I was just like, after about a month and a half of this, and I finally realized what was happening, I took precautions, and I went ahead and started working my magics back on them, and I dived headfirst back into the dark magics and put up a protection around me. I summoned up a demon and made a pact with that demon that they would protect me, and that during this time of protection, anything that was directed at me would be refracted and go back upon the coven as a whole 100 times over, and that it would not stop until the coven had stopped working on me. I know this sounds like a very fantastic story and like it's a bunch of made up bullshit, but it's what happened, and I have no reason to lie to you. I'm not trying to sell you anything or give you testimony to buy a product or whatever, but when I did this, about a month later, I ran into 3 of the people from my old coven, and one had lost their home, the other had been in a serious car accident and the car was totaled, and the other one had a miscarriage. Now, if that was a direct result of what I was doing back, or if that was karma or whatever else, I don't know. It could have just all been coincidence too, but I'm chalking it up to karmatic retribution and the working that I did to protect myself. So anyways, moving on from there. So the next thing is, do others collude with the main abusers in their hurtful behaviors? How are those persons connected with the coven? Is there cliquishness involved? How differently are people inside and outside, inner and are in the coven and outside the coven cliques treated? Do the coven leaders make you feel miserable, as if there's no way out of your solution and that you're stuck in the coven? Have you been told or intimidated that you will be in this coven for life? Do they forbid you to investigate other covens or to talk to people from other covens and organizations? Are you encouraged to keep silent about behaviors you witness in the coven? Not necessarily oath-bound coven secrets, which are to remain silent about, but about how people are treating one another, how interpersonal interactions affect others. Are there leaders of the coven that are frequently angry or seemingly mad for no reason? Is there one person that always seems to receive the brunt of the coven leader's anger? In your opinion, has that person done anything to warrant such anger or treatment? Okay, so that falls back onto what we were just talking about. Again, being the scapegoat, being the burden, being the just being the forefront of covenantal abuse. Are there cliques within the coven? Oh, well, you know, Janice and I, we hang out with Tiffany and Stephanie, and we only do this, this, and this, and even though we're part of the coven, you can't sit with us type mentality. You know, you come to a coven, you form a coven for the fellowship and the coming together of like-mindedness. Doing anything else than that is reprehensible. There are some secrets that are oath-bound within a coven that you do not speak about outside of the coven, but if it's a moral gray area, like you guys are going around kidnapping puppies and sacrificing them or whatever, and in your day-to-day life you are an activist for animal rights and sign petitions and stuff, well, of course, then, you know, that is not a moral gray area. That is something that goes against your code of conduct and your ethics. So by all means, you should speak up about it, because that's somebody's pet, that's somebody's familiar, family member, fur baby, whatever. And even though I have used sacrifices in rituals in the past and stuff like that, I was never okay with it. And I was never the one making the sacrifice. I was always the bystander. When and if I have to sacrifice something in a spell or a ritual or whatever I'm doing, I make a sacrifice of self. I will cut off my hair, I will cut myself and bleed into the cauldron, I will spit into it, I will give of self as a sacrifice. I will not take the life of an animal in order to appease a god or a spirit. Have I been in covens that have done that? Like I said, yes, of course I have. But in my personal day-to-day practices, absolutely not. I have sacrificed insects, but that was... I don't know how to explain the difference, but an animal like a bird, cat, fish, dog, whatever, I have never sacrificed that. I have utilized insects, ants, beetles, roaches, things like that I have utilized, but I've never personally, physically killed an animal for the sacrifice. Like I said, I feel that a sacrifice of self is more powerful because it is something coming from you because you are asking it to come from you and to benefit you. Let's see, what else is there here? Okay. Do leaders of a coven exhibit disbelief when you or others confront them with their bizarre behaviors? Do they blame you or others for abuses that they have put on you? Like, you made me do this, or do they use projection, accusing you or others of doing the same kind of abuses that they themselves have put on, while staunchly denying their own culpability? And do they constantly point to misunderstandings or of you yourself or others' supposed lack of spiritual growth, or just constantly like, no, well, you do this and this, like trying to justify their actions? Absolutely not. You know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander in most cases. But if the leader is working and doing things that does not align with your own personal beliefs, then you have to do right by you and say, hey, whoa, I'm sorry, this isn't going to happen because I don't agree with this. I'm not going to take part in this. And then if they say, well, you do this, this, and this, well, so what? You're not going to utilize my actions to justify yours. So, kind of keep that in the forefront of your mind also. Do the coven leaders always use altered states of consciousness, either induced by alcohol or drugs, as an excuse for being abusive? Like, do they engage in abusive behaviors while possessed by deity or spirit, or in a trance state? If so, is this a solo effort on the part of one or two? A concentrated effort on the part of many? Do they blame spirit or deity or drugs for their abusive behavior? Like, the gods made me do it. It was the goddess, not me. That was the booze talking, not me, so on and so forth. That is classic textbook abuser behavior. If you've spent any time in Al-Anon or have gone through any kind of drug and alcohol treatment where you have been victimized or abused, you know that users will typically blame whatever substance of choice on their actions. Now, there's a school of thought that believes that having mind-altering substances helps connect you with the divine and the spirit world and so on and so forth. There's also those other schools of thought that say, absolutely not, you should be 100% sober and grounded when working magic because you open yourself up to deities, demons, so on and so forth, entering your body, blah, 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 blah. Your choice to utilize drugs or alcohol or mind-altering substances is yours and yours alone. But if consistently, habitually, a coven leader or someone in a place of power is utilizing substances to alter their consciousness and then abuse you during those altered states, that is a user, that is an abuser, and that is somebody that you need to walk away from. This also stems to family members. If your husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other, what have you, parent even, aunt, uncle, what if anyone in your life abuses you when you are, or when they are under the influence of a substance, and that happens every single fucking time that they get loaded, that is no longer within the realms of magic, witchcraft, whatever else. That is abusive, addictive behaviors. I had a friend who, her husband would get drunk any way he could, completely black out, and just tear the whole house up and fight and yell and scream and all this other stuff, and wouldn't even realize what had happened when they woke up the next morning. They'd wake up like, oh, hi, ha, ha, and like, why is the house messed up? Well, not only did they have this horrible drinking problem, but they also had a chemical imbalance that they were unaware of, and didn't find out until later on in their life that when they drank, because of that chemical imbalance, it caused them to go into this blackout stage and just cause havoc. So, if all the coven is tweaking, or strung out, or high, or whatever else, and that doesn't align with your personal beliefs or something that you do, then you need to think to yourself, okay, is this the group that I need to be with? Is this a safe environment for me to be in? If that's not, then you need to walk away. If you're like, occasionally I'll have a joint or something like that, and I feel okay smoking or drinking and or using mind-altering substances every once in a while to perform magic, or hell, habitually, then that's your choice to continue following down that path with those people. But if it doesn't align with what is there for you, you need to walk away. If you are constantly being abused, if you are constantly being the center of attention in a negative manner, walk away from those people. That is not a healthy environment for you. Like I said, there are other people that would say, oh, no, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. I'm all about do you boo, okay? If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do in your spiritual life, that's on you. But again, if you feel like you are being abused or being taken advantage of, or the scapegoat or whatever else, because everyone else is doing these things, that's an abuse situation. That's when you should walk away. Do any of the leaders or people within the coven appear to have that Jekyll and Hyde personality? Do they exhibit sudden mood swings, unpredictable behavior, and have constantly contrasting modes of personal conduct over a period of time that you can recognize as a cycle or a patterned behavior? Do you experience incidents of benevolence, then sudden violence, kindness, then rage, over a significant period of time? Does this person often seem to not know what you are talking about when you refer to past conversations. Do they claim that they never said that? Or what you know they did? Do they claim that you never told them things that you know that you did? The Jekyll and Hyde personality, that can happen to everyone, you know. It just depends on the day of, like, what you're going through, because you could be a mild-mannered person 99% of the time, but you have a bad day and you fly off the handle. That's okay, that's understood, that's understandable. But if you're constantly dealing with somebody who's hot and cold, like you have to walk on eggshells to be around them, if it's not a medical reason that they're like that, like they're bipolar, or they have a lithium imbalance or something like that, you have to look at that as a form of abuse. You should not feel scared or intimidated or less than when you are in a coven situation. You are all there as friends, families, and loved ones. You come together as a like-minded wholeness. You form a being. You yourself may be dealing with mental issues and mental health problems. You might be bipolar, you might be this, you might be that, you might have this kind of personality. You may be depressed or suffering from depression. You may be dealing with drug abuse or alcoholism or whatever else. But when that becomes a problem for everyone else, then you need to kind of step back and look introspectively at yourself, like, okay, I know that I have these issues, I know that I do these things, so I need to work on myself. Contrary-wise, though, if somebody else is exhibiting those type of behaviors, you need to really take a step back and, like, okay, is this part of their mental health issues? Is this just a cycle of abuse that they want to try to inflict upon me, so on and so forth? It's okay to say, hey, you may not speak to me in such a manner. And doing so can be very scary at times, because you don't know how that person's going to react. So just kind of take that one also with a grain of salt. Make sure that you've fully given the chance to the person to, like, make amends, that it wasn't just a bad day. If they're having a bad year, okay, wait a minute, you know, you need to go get right with the gods or your higher power. Go masturbate, go meditate, go do whatever you need to do to get right with yourself, because that negativity that you're bringing into the coven is not going to fly. And it's okay for you and the coven to come together and say that a high priest or a high priestess or an elder or whatever is no longer fit for leading that coven, and branch out on your own and just ghost that person. That's completely acceptable also. And it's also completely acceptable for you to walk away. But also be understanding that if it is a mental health issue, that there's sometimes that person just cannot help it. Now I'll open up a little bit about myself and tell you that I suffer from depression. I am bipolar level 1 with I can never say that word, with male irritable syndrome, and some rage issues. Now, when I'm within a coven environment, I try very hard to separate those emotions from being a good spiritual advisor and a good spiritual leader and teacher from what's actually going on in my day-to-day life. I have a student right now who is very understanding, and there have been times where I have completely flown off the handle at this person, but at the end of the day, they know that I have a lot of love and respect for them, and that when I'm just in one of those moods, because it is very rare and infrequent, that one, I'm going to apologize when I have sorted myself out, and that two, that I don't typically mean what I said, or in the manner in which it was said. There have been times where I'm just like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel, and I had to have that bipolar moment to come out and say those things to you. I'm sorry that it hurt your feelings, but right, wrong, or indifferent, this is how I feel, and this is how it made me feel at the time, and blah, 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 blah. So there are times when I offer apologies, and there are times when I'm very unapologetic, because 9 times out of 10, I will curve what I have to say, or what I feel I should say, to somebody, and I will let it sit on my chest, and fester, and build, and come to a boil, and there it is. It just bubbles out. So, anyways, moving on from there. How do leaders of the coven relate to children, animals, and the disabled? Are they fair in the treatment of the children, of the animals, of the physically disabled, or mentally challenged? Do they hurt, treat carelessly, or advocate the hurting of these groups of people? And how do they advocate, or I'm sorry, how do they feel with regards to the persons of different races, sexual orientations other than themselves? Do they advocate treating such persons differently? These are all things that we kind of covered, but you know, there's a fine line between joking around and straight out racism and prejudice. So we all at one time or another have made a, for lack of a better word, retard joke, or referred to somebody as being stupid or retarded or whatever else. And at times, even though we don't like to admit it, we have probably made fun of somebody who is handicapped or handy-capable, or whatever PC term you want to use. I myself am guilty of having done this. I talk shit about everyone, but it comes from a place of love, and it's never anything that is meant, because I myself have personal flaws. Most of them I address, some of them I don't. I am nowhere near perfect. I joke around like I am. I act like I'm perfect at times, but I do so in a haha, that's funny manner. I never want to be the bully. I never want to physically attack somebody for being different, because I myself am different. I have mental health issues. I have physical health issues. I have physical features that are undesirable to some. I am a heavy-set person, so I know that people see that as a negative in our society and make fun of fat people and stuff like that. I have skin blemishes. Matter of fact, I think these might actually be skin cancer, and I gotta go get them checked out. But you know, I have blemishes. My hair is oily. My skin is blotchy. You know, all these different things. I don't wear name brand clothes. I wear what's comfortable, so I kind of look frumpy at times. But I will make fun of people who look like that, are the people of Walmart, that kind of situation. But I'm not doing it from a I'm better than them. I'm doing it from a ha-ha point of view. Now, whether or not they're in the joke, or in on the joke, I should say, or not, that's a different story. But I'll be catty with my friends, and I'll sit back and be all like, "Ooh, girl, did you see that bitch over there? Her hair was fucked up." Or, just playful banter. But I would never once come to somebody and just be like, "Oh, you ugly piece of shit. Fuck you for even living on this earth," and blah, 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 blah. Now, if we are in a fight, that is a completely total different... Yeah, that's completely and totally different. You say things in the heat of an argument or when you're in a fight. But if you are coming together as a collective unit that is supposed to be a holy spiritual group, and you are attacking or ostracizing people on a daily basis, let's use the Westboro Baptist Church, the people who go around to LGBT funerals and say that their sons and daughters deserve to die and that they're going to be burning in hell and all this other stuff. That is a group that takes racism and political stances and abuse to a dark area. There's even talks of that organization being disbanded as a religion or as a church, and being labeled a hate group. Know the difference between joking around and being the abuser or the attacker. We're going on a long time now. If you're still following along, it's almost an hour into this video. These are some of the abuses, though, that you could face in coven life or just in your day-to-day life. So many times I tell people, cut the fat from your life. You got to take a stock of who is in your life, why they're in your life, what role they play in your life, and just really kind of think about, is this person someone that I need there? Is this person somebody that needs to stay in my life for this reason or that reason? It could be a family member, it could be a church member, it could be a person at work, whatever. It's okay to say enough is enough and cut them out of your life. If it's a family member, it's a little bit more difficult to cut a family member out of your life, but you can lessen your interactions with them. I have members of my family who are very toxic. I have limited my interaction with them. I have limited my communications with them, but I will still talk to them. I will still visit with them during family functions and what have you. Just not go out of my way to do so when we aren't all together in a group. So with what we've talked about in this video, basically it boils down to, do you feel safe? Do you feel like this is aligning with your personal thoughts, beliefs, and goals? And if it's not, then branch out on your own or become a solitary practitioner. There's absolutely no reason why you could not be a solitary practitioner. I'm a solitary practitioner that has a couple of students, and I also maintain an online coven. But at the same time, I consider myself a solitary practitioner because more often than not, I am working alone, by myself, and only come together with my coven or like-minded community members from time to time. So, with all of that being said and done, I hope that you guys have learned something from this video, that it has given you the ability to speak up, or given you like just light and insight into the possible abuses of power from people in powerful positions. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it off now, but if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe to this channel and hit that little bell icon so that you are notified whenever I upload anything. Also, I have all of this, what we just covered on the video, on the new section of my website, mroveron.com. If you go to this drop-down menu, it will be under Mr. Overon's journal, or you can go directly to the blog. It's called mrovansjournal.blogspot.com. And I also am having a little bit of issues with the website right now, the Mr. Overon website. It's throwing up this weird error message saying that the site's unsafe or whatever. It's okay. There are absolutely no viruses on it. I had my IT people go and take a look at it. I have to have a friend who does coding go through and look at the coding to make sure everything's up to par and to figure out why that is working out the way that it is. So if you can't access the mroveron.com directly, you can go to mroveron.weebly, weebly.com, and that'll take you to the website also. So I just got to contact GoDaddy and get that all situated and sorted out. If you would like to talk to me directly, like I said, you can put it in the comment section down below, or you can send me an email at mroveron@gmail.com. And go check out the new blog. There's a ton of information on there. I just put it up yesterday and just poured tons and tons and tons of information. I'm going to try to keep that up and going. And if you would like a spell cast or spiritual advisory, peer counseling, tarot card reading, or anything, hit me up on the website, mroveron.com, and I will talk to you all later. Bye, witches!